Hi friends, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Well, we're going to get straight to work today on lots of random, more maintenance jobs out here in the garden. And the first thing I want to do is extend my grass pathway in the main flower walk. You might be able to see that I've started to outline a new edge for both of these gardens. And you know, this is a problem that I basically created. I'm embarrassed to say, but you know, when we moved here, there was no flower beds at all. And over the years, I've quickly just made the beds bigger, bigger, and bigger, and made the grass pathway so small that two people can't walk side by side on the path anymore. And also because it gets so much foot traffic every day, I'm constantly regrassing this really narrow area. So I want to extend it just to the point where two people can walk comfortably side by side. And I think too, it will help the space feel a little more open again. You know, when I look back at pictures of when I first started on this garden, this space looked a lot bigger to me. And my hope is that this year, by moving a couple of the really tall shrubs to the back of the border, and that by making the grass pathway wider again, we'll have more of that open feel and less kind of a enclosed jungle feel, which I feel like does happen in my garden, especially once we hit August. So let's just get right to work. I'm here in Pennsylvania, so I just picked up the mix that Penn State recommends, and we're just gonna sew that together. I'm just gonna kind of scratch it in a bit as we go versus raking it, since it's such a small area. I think that might just be easier. Friends, I am absolutely no grass expert at all. This is just me, your flower friend, planting grass seeds. So I would definitely look elsewhere for advice on planting grass seed. So hopefully this will have been a good decision, and by the time we do a garden tour at the very end of April, we should have grass growing here. It is currently Good Friday, so we've got almost a month until we'll kind of see this garden come back to life fully. So I was about to move on to pruning back some butterfly bushes, but as I cut into them, I see that they've died all the way back to the ground this year. This is probably because I planted them very, very late in the season last year, but thankfully the root system is still good. But rather than prune them, I'm going to cut the entire plant back to the ground. I decided to check on my older butterfly bush while I was thinking about it. I pruned this one about 2 weeks ago. I am able to see it starting to push leaves from the stems at this point, but also when I cut into the wood itself, I can tell that it's still alive and doing well. So here's what it looks like on the inside when your butterfly bush is still alive, the stem rather is still alive. And here's what we just cut from those dwarf butterfly bushes that I planted late in the season. You can see some green there. It just kind of looks juicier, I guess you would say. This one is obviously brown and dried up. So if this is the case, I would take back the whole branch until I see a nice green, moist growth inside the stem. But that's okay, sometimes that happens. And I have always heard that you're supposed to plant butterfly bushes earlier on in the season, but you know, of course they bloom later in the season, so the nurseries are always pushing them then. So that's kind of what happened over there in the driveway garden, but no worries, they're still alive and they'll push out new growth from the base and they'll still flower this year too. Well, thankfully the sun decided to come out, so I ran inside to change into a baseball hat. But now we're going to go ahead and plant out a tray of Clarkia that I started about a month ago. This is Elegant Salmon Clarkia. I grew it only once before and I just direct seeded it over in the driveway garden. And I'm afraid that that year I kind of smothered it, so I wasn't really able to see how it performed. And when I grew it over there, I felt like the stems were kind of a little bit spindly and on the weaker side. And what was interesting is I grew a whole flat of this 48 cells, and I would say about a fourth of it is weak and spindly. So I'm not sure if you can see here if I hold it kind of in the shadows. These three are fine, but this one over here on my right is weak and spindly. So I'm just going to plant the best ones in the main flower walk, and then the weak ones I'm going to go plant over in the area which is going to be the Saving Grace Dahlia seedling patch, because these should bloom before we're ready to plant out those dahlias. So let's get that done, and then I've got to show you the Verbena bonariensis that we propagated. It has so many roots all over it. I'm ready to plant those Verbena out into the garden and take even more cuttings. We're just gonna keep on cutting this Verbena as long as possible. So I guess I'm kind of taking a risk with these Clarkia, not only because their stems were really weak for me in previous years, but also because of this color. This is a salmon color, but the color palette I want over here in the main flower walk for the majority of the season is acid green, purple, dark purple, blue, and then I'm taking a chance and adding in lots of orange, coral orange to even bright orange. The look I'm going for is basically Sarah Raven's Oast garden. That garden seems to carry on that color palette all throughout the growing season, and then I do see some shades of dark red later in the growing season. So I may even put a lot of Cornell dahlias in the main flower walk this year, just for that nice contrast between bold purple and bold deep purple red. Well, now that we have that Clarkia in the ground, let's go ahead and move on to these Verbena cuttings. I believe we took these only 2 weeks ago, and hopefully you can see here that they just have tons and tons of roots on them. They're ready to be planted, and I'm gonna go ahead and take more tip cuttings and put them right back into these jars. I'm really going for Verbena all throughout the main flower walk, so we're just going to scatter it here, there, and everywhere, and then take more cuttings. The tip growth on the Verbena is very weak still, but that's okay because we're gonna cut that off and propagate it again. So I'll get these watered in just a second, but now what I'm gonna do is take more cuttings all over again. I'm basically just gonna leave 2 leaves in the ground. And just like last time, we'll cut those bottom leaves off and right into water. Now it probably would have been easier for me to just take these cuttings inside before bringing the plants out, but to be completely honest with you, I hosted Easter this year and my house is a complete mess right now. Wasn't that wonderful? We were able to not only just double our stock of Verbena bonariensis, we were able to triple it by taking multiple cuttings from the same mother plants. That's what I really love about gardening. Now I'm going to get all these things that we planted today watered in really, really well. And coming up soon, we're going to be planting out my sweet peas. They've been growing on outside for about a month now, probably a month and a half. And I also have lots of bare root peonies to get in the ground. And then I'm going to be getting started on all my tender annuals that I haven't started yet. Things that take a little bit shorter time to get going inside, like zinnias and cosmos and those type of things. And then before you know it, it's time for dahlias to get into the ground. But for now, I want to wish you all a wonderful day and happy gardening. Bye!